Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. In just a minute, my good friend Marissa will be joining me to share some controversial Walt Disney World opinions. You won't want to miss this one. Before we get started, please like and subscribe and comment with your opinion on any topic we happen to discuss on the show. Also, if you're looking for a free, no-obligation quote on a Walt Disney World vacation, contact me, Rick at eartotheirtravel.com, Rick at eartotheirtravel.com. You can also give me a call, 727-507-3123, 727-507-3123. My services are always 100% free to you. Let's get things started by welcoming Marissa. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
I am doing excellent. We have a fun topic today, I think, and that is going to be overrated and underrated attractions, restaurants, experiences, all throughout Walt Disney World. We are going to pick an overrated and an underrated experience at each park. I think that's going to be fun, but the first thing I want to state, just so nobody gets mad, overrated does not mean bad.
Yes. Absolutely.
Overrated might be a ride that has a super long line. It might be a restaurant where it's really, really hard to get a reservation. It might be an expensive experience or something like that. And we just don't know if it's worth that compared to other things. But it is not saying they are bad. A lot of these things are some of my favorite things at Walt Disney World. I just think they're overrated.
Yeah, I agree. There are a few things on my list that I have notated, like, don't get me wrong, I love this, but I think it's overrated.
So we are going to go in reverse order that the Walt Disney World parks opened, and we're going to start with Disney's Animal Kingdom, opened up in 1998, and we're going to start with an overrated experience. Marissa, what do you have?
Dinosaur. Right off the bat, I'm coming swinging for all those people who love Dinosaur, and I'm sorry. It's a fun ride. I know it's like this cult classic, everyone loves it. But I think a lot of times for what you can wait for, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it to be thrown around in the dark for like 2 minutes, and you see a little bit of a dinosaur here and there. And, I think the pre-show is sometimes more fun than the ride. Sorry.
So I very, very much disagree with you on this one, but I do see where you're coming from, because if you are at Animal Kingdom in a busy time of year, the line for Dinosaur can get extremely long. You can be outside that building on a regular basis. I don't think it gets lines like that as much as other attractions, which is why it might not be that high on my list. Like, you can regularly find it at 25, 30 minutes. But I do see where you're coming from, where if it's an hour, that's too long to wait for it, even though it's one of my favorite attractions on property.
I'm sorry. I just think that if you have one day at Animal Kingdom and you're trying to fit everything in, that's going to be at the bottom of my list of recommendations of things to do, personally.
I don't have to agree with what you say, but I will fight to the death your right to say it, I guess. I am going to start with a very controversial one. I think I might get a little bit of hate for this one. My overrated at Animal Kingdom is Pandora at night.
Interesting.
People always talk about you have to see Pandora at night. It's so beautiful at night. Oh my goodness. It is very pretty at night, but it's a black light effect. It's fine, it's beautiful, but if I were to compare Pandora at night to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at night, there's no comparison. Galaxy's Edge is so beautiful at night, and Pandora's great, but I just don't think if you're sticking around until night to see Pandora instead of hopping to another park and experiencing some things that you really want to experience, I just don't think it's worth it. But now let's go to something a little more positive, our underrated Disney's Animal Kingdom.
Okay, for underrated, I'm going to go with the main park icon, the Tree of Life. I think that it is gorgeous. It is so detailed, all the animals carved into it. You can walk around the whole thing and really explore it. And a lot of people don't take the time to do it. And I think that that's a really neat, unique experience that you really can only get with that icon.
Boy, that is such a good answer because I really think there are trails on Discovery Island that go around the Tree of Life that people don't even know exist. There's a little trail, the entrance is right there next to the Otter Grotto. You get to walk within feet of the Tree of Life and just really, really see these details. There are kangaroos that are around there. I know that's not technically the Tree of Life, but those pathways really take advantage of them because you will not believe how much detail they put in to the Tree of Life. And I think arguably it's either Tree of Life or Spaceship Earth are the best icons in any park. Best place to get your picture taken.
Absolutely. And I know in the past I've been harsh on Animal Kingdom and saying that it's, my least favorite park. And, in my last couple trips, I've really given it the time that it deserves and explored those trails for the first time. And it was a totally different experience. And I loved the park. And now I'm like, okay, I can't wait to get back to Animal Kingdom just to walk around and enjoy it, which is just wild.
And your overrated and underrated really make a lot of sense because one thing that you can get stuck doing at Animal Kingdom, and I talk about this all of the time, is just rushing from Flight of Passage to Kilimanjaro Safari to Expedition Everest to Dinosaur and not checking out everything in between. And that's a really great point that you make. Take your time, enjoy this park. It is not a traditional theme park.
There are other parks that have that more traditional experience, and that's great and that's wonderful. And obviously, I love that too. But to really get the full experience of Animal Kingdom, you do need to set that time aside to not rush around and really just soak it up and just take that experience for what it's worth.
Absolutely love it. And my underrated is an experience that you really almost have to go out of your way to experience. And that's getting on the train, going over to Conservation Station, and taking part in the animation experience. This is so phenomenal. If you have kids, you're definitely going to want to do this. Let's be honest, even if you don't have kids, you're going to want to do this. You can put it on your own refrigerator, and they will literally have an animator show you how to draw a Disney character. Because it's at Disney's Animal Kingdom, it's 9 times out of 10 going to be an animal character. I've drawn Scar, Simba, Zazu, one of the characters from the new Raya movie, which I haven't seen yet, so I don't really know what the character is. I've done TikTok from Peter Pan, Dumbo. It's really, really fun. You will be amazed at how well these animators turn you into an artist. You'll look at what you're going to be drawing and think there's no way I can do that. And by the end, you have this really, really great image. Not a lot of people take the time to go back to Conservation Station. That's a whole experience in and of itself. There's a petting zoo there. There's some other things. But the animation experience is really great. The only thing I do want to say is right now, with social distancing and with limiting people getting on the train, there's only X amount of trains that take you back there. You might end up having to wait 30, 45 minutes to get back to the main section of Animal Kingdom because there's no pathway that gets you from Conservation Station back to the main part of the park. So just keep that in mind. Now let's move to Disney's Hollywood Studios. And I feel that this is going to be a very fun park to do because so much of it is overrated and so much of it is underrated. So let's start, Marissa. What is your overrated Hollywood Studios?
Okay, once again, I feel like you're going to totally disagree with me on this, so apologies in advance. Overrated, I have Smuggler's Run. I'm sorry. But see, this is a ride that I do really enjoy, but I think that it can be overrated depending on who you end up riding with. And I think that's where part of why I think it's overrated comes from. Because if you have a great group of people you end up in that cockpit with, you're going to have such a great time. that experience is going to be incredible and it's totally worth your wait. But if you end up with a group of people who, are taking it too seriously or are just not feeling it and not really into it, then it's going to end up being like okay, I waited an hour and a half and I got kind of a dud experience. With the pilot being the only really truly interactive role, a lot of people are disappointed by that. Personally, I'm not. I am a big fan of being the engineer and sitting there and just like watching the screen and pushing buttons and like not having that stress of like, oh gosh, I need to pilot this right. Because I'm usually not with a group of six. So I don't want to be the one disappointing everyone. For what it is, it can get overrated just based on the experience of, being in the Millennium Falcon.
So I almost put this on my list for overrated Hollywood studios, but I didn't because I do really love the experience and I think that it has to be there at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. You have to be able to ride the Millennium Falcon. However, there are a bunch of things about it that I would say maybe drift it towards overrated. There are some times where that queue, especially during social distancing, is back past Toy Story Land. That is almost unacceptable for the ride that you get to experience. Now, that's been a lot less likely now because they put some plexiglass there and they've done some other things to help with that. But like you said, if you wait in a 90-minute line and you get Gunner and there's an 8-year-old kid who doesn't know what he or she is doing and you're just crashing the whole time and you waited all of that time for this experience, it can be extremely overrated. Now, if you get together with yourself and 5 of your friends and you're like, we're just going to get in line and we're going to ride the Falcon, it's one of the best rides on property. But I
Yeah.
still think it's one of those that's new enough that it's still getting the super long lines. There's still people who are experiencing it for the first time. And yeah, I'm going to say that it can definitely be overrated. Not nearly as overrated, however, as my choice, which is the restaurant Hollywood and Vine.
Yes.
This is a character dining experience. It's a buffet normally. Now it's more family style. And I get it. Your kids want to meet Mickey and Minnie. They put them in different costumes in different times of the year. I get why people want this reservation, why this reservation is so important for people, but the food's just not that good. And there are so many great places to eat at Hollywood Studios that sneakily became a foodie park with the Hollywood Brown Derby. Even Mama Melrose is a nice place where everybody's going to find something they like. Sci-Fi Diner, 50s Prime Time. Docking Bay 7 in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is awesome. There is no reason to spend this kind of money and worry this much about a reservation for the food that you're getting at Hollywood and Vine. You want to meet Mickey? You want to meet some of these characters during a dining experience? Do Garden Grill at Epcot. Do Chef Mickey's at the Contemporary. That's just my opinion. If you love Hollywood and Vine, then that's cool. But I think there's so much good food in Hollywood Studios that I would rather experience some of those things. Now let's move back to the positive. What is your underrated Hollywood Studios?
Okay, underrated. I have another ride. I have Midway Mania. And I think that that is such a good ride. It is so much fun. Everyone can enjoy it, from little kids to grandparents. It's just a fun experience. The competition aspect, love that. Even if you're not good at it, I'm not the best at it, still have a blast every single time. And when people talk about Hollywood Studios, it really gets overlooked. In part, that's because Hollywood Studios does have a lot to bring to the table now with the opening of Galaxy's Edge. There are a lot of really great rides there. When people talk about Toy Story Land, Slinky Dog, they praise it. Swirling Saucers gets like an eh. And Midway Mania just gets kind of left out of the discussion. But I think that's one of the best rides in the whole park.
There are so many great things about that ride. Like you said, the competition, it is a ride that everybody in the family can do it. It is a ride that has a mostly indoor queue in the hottest land in all of Walt Disney World. You can get out of the sun by riding Toy Story Mania. It loads a ton of people. So even though you'll see the line sometimes stretch literally out of Toy Story Land, it might be a 35-minute wait. Anybody who sleeps on this ride, you have to do this one. It is one of the rare rides actually at Hollywood Studios. Basically, that and Mickey and Minnie's are the only ones that are fun for the entire family. Maybe the entire family can do alien swirling saucers, but I think this one is fun for everybody.
Definitely.
So I don't know why all of a sudden at Hollywood Studios I was in a food/drinks kick. But I think something that is very, very underrated, although it's starting to get that exposure, is Baseline Tap House. This is right across from the Muppets section, right before you get into the main entrance of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And I do not drink alcohol, but I love this bar. They have a clear cherry Coke style soda that you can get that's really, really good. You can get the pretzels from next door at Sci-Fi Diner, and those are excellent. They have charcuterie boards and things like that. It's bar food, but it's really, really good. The atmosphere makes it feel like you're not even in a theme park. I swear by Baseline Tap House, although I do think that now people are starting to sort of get a whiff that it is a really, really great place to go.
It's great that you say that because that's one that I personally have never been to because I don't drink either. So I just kind of wrote it off. But I'm going to have to check that out next time I'm in Hollywood Studios because you sold me. You sold me on it. It sounds great.
I never would have gone into it because I don't drink, except for I was meeting up with friends who do drink. And when I got in there, and I just didn't want to leave. And this was just a couple months after Galaxy's Edge opened. So normally I wanted to spend all my Hollywood Studios time in Galaxy's Edge. But I was like, no, let's stay here. Let's eat some pretzels. It really, really great atmosphere.
And the fact that it feels like a little bit of a reprieve from the theme park itself is really nice. I love finding those places where you can get that little relaxed atmosphere and escape from the hecticness of the parks for a little bit.
Back when I did drink, I always liked finding that bar in like Washington, D.C. or New York City where it's just like that corner bar that maybe is a little bit of a hole in the wall. And this feels like one, but with Disney quality. It's great. So let's move over to the second Walt Disney World park ever built, Epcot. October 1st, 1982, it opened. And what is your overrated experience at Epcot?
So I've been on a real ride kick lately, and I'm keeping that up. My overrated at Epcot is Test Track. And I think it's a fun ride, but the best part is the last 10 seconds when you go running around outside. I think that the ride was better before they redid it, which I think can be a controversial opinion. But I preferred the crash test dummy version. And I think that the version that they have now, it doesn't have as much of a story. I'm not big on just the whole neon everywhere. Kind of feels like Tron, even though it's not. It is a fun ride, but I think that, again, for what you can wait for it, there are better ways to spend your time in Epcot.
So I decided that I was going to come up with two answers for every park. In case Marissa and I had the same answer, then I would go with my other answer. And this is the first time that what Marissa said was what I had listed as well. I had Test Track. I 100% agree that I liked it before better when it was the crash test dummy version. This one feels too sterile to me. Listen, I love Test Track. I enjoy doing it, but it breaks down a lot. So the line is almost always long. People know that it breaks down a lot, so they rope drop it. They rush to it first thing in the morning. So it will have a long wait really, really early in the morning. It's just so hit and miss that I totally agree with you. Good choice. Now, I did pick a second one for Epcot, so I will go with that one right now. And this one might be controversial. The Italy Pavilion in World Showcase. Italy should have one of the best pavilions. And honestly, if I'm not eating there, if I'm not eating at Tutto Gusto or Via Napoli, which are great restaurants, remember, it's overrated, not bad. If I'm not eating at one of those restaurants, I just walk past the Italy Pavilion every time I'm there. There's nothing to do besides eat. The shops are great, but are you going to spend all that much money at the Italy Pavilion? Cool, I've got an espresso cup with Donald Duck on it. Like, that's awesome, and it's cute, but once you've bought that cup, there's nothing else to do there. It feels like a big Olive Garden. The food's better. The food is much, much better than an Olive Garden. But if you're not going to those restaurants, and now with the festivals lasting as long as they're lasting now, I don't find myself eating at a lot of restaurants in Epcot anymore. So I really wish that they had created that gondola ride that they were thinking about creating when they opened World Showcase. There was going to be a gondola ride like you were in Venice, and I think that's really needed because it's just missing something.
That would have been incredible to have that ride in that pavilion. And you're right, it would have totally turned it around. Like you were saying with the food, with the festivals, you don't really eat in the Italy pavilion, but it's not like the festival food for Italy is all that great. So there's really no motivation to be there.
That is a very, very good observation. It's like they think the only dessert that they've ever had in Italy is a cannoli. So it's just a different cannoli in the Italy booth for every festival. My wife is Italian, loves everything Italian, loves eating Italian food, and we never go to that booth. As a vegetarian, there's never anything vegetarian except for the cannoli. It definitely is lacking.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So, Marissa, underrated Epcot. I think there is a lot to pick from here.
I had a really hard time picking one thing that was underrated because I feel like Epcot as a whole is underrated, especially right now. But I ended up going with the Flower and Garden Festival. It's timely, going on right now. When it comes to Epcot festivals, everyone talks about food and wine. And if you're not like super in the Disney community, a lot of times people don't know that there are other festivals besides food and wine. They think that's the only one. And now, Festival of the Holidays is starting to become a little more popular, and Festival of the Arts has gotten more recognition, which I love. But Flower and Garden still doesn't really get talked about a whole lot. The topiaries, all those flowers, it looks gorgeous. The whole park is beautiful, even more beautiful than it normally is. You've got all the food, it's at a great time of the year, and it just doesn't get the love it deserves.
And now that it is going to like 10 days before Food and Wine starts, it does kind of get overshadowed, even though it lasts a long time. I mean, I love the food for Food and Wine, don't get me wrong. And I think the food for Food and Wine is better, but it's not that much better. Like, Flower and Garden has the topiaries, has all of the Flower and Garden stuff, but then is also a mini Food and Wine in and of itself. You're definitely going to find a lot of food that you have to try. And you can check out previous episodes of the podcast where we talk about all that food. So that's synergy. I think the execs at Disney would like that. My underrated at Epcot is Living with the Land. Like Baseline Tap House, this is starting to kind of gain that cult following. But this ride, it's so easy to get into the Land Pavilion at Epcot and just immediately run to Soarin', especially if Soarin' doesn't have a long line. Living with the Land is usually about 20, 25 minutes at the most. Granted, if it's more than 25 minutes, come back later. Like, I'm not suggesting you wait an hour for Living with the Land. But first, you get these almost dioramas. You go around in a boat. You're in the air conditioning, and then you go through the greenhouse and you see all of this food being grown, and it is the edutainment that all of us nerds who remember Epcot from its earlier life and the people who maybe aren't willing to let it go. I'm willing to let it go, but I still love that we have this one thing, living with the land, that really feels like the original purpose of Epcot. I absolutely love it. I ride it almost every time. Back when Fast Pass Plus was still a thing, I made a Fast Pass for Living with the Land every time I went to Epcot.
Yep, I have to completely agree with you. That is such a good pick, and it is still so underrated. This is one that I've also been guilty of overlooking, and I didn't really prioritize until one of my recent trips. I was there with my cousins, and they were like, no, you have to ride it. You have to ride it. You're gonna love it. You love this kind of stuff. You'll see. And I was like, okay. And I went on it and I got off it and I was like, okay, that was such a great ride. And I was like, all right, let's do that again. That was fun. Well, they don't have it right now, but they do have a tour, does a little bit behind the scenes of that ride. And I think that would be a lot of fun. I hope they bring that back.
And nothing Disney ever does would go without a pun. It's actually the Behind the Seeds tour. Oh, I can't wait till it comes back because I'm definitely doing that one.
Yeah, that's definitely on my list of things to try. And fabulous name. Well done, Disney.
And now we are about to make some people mad, I'm sure. I don't know what Marissa picked, but over to Magic Kingdom, getting ready on October 1st to celebrate its 50th birthday. What is overrated at Magic Kingdom?
I figured it would be cheating to say the sit-down restaurants, so I didn't. I picked Casey's Corner. Specifically, the corn dog nuggets are super overrated. I hear a lot of people talk about how they're the best and they're great and you got to get them and you got to get them with the cheese. But without the cheese, they're just okay. The hot dogs are just okay. I think that it's a fun experience to go there because it is something that's become so iconic about Magic Kingdom dining. But if you're talking food quality, that's not the place I'd recommend.
So I'm going to agree and disagree with you on this same answer. And where I'm going to agree with you, it's not open right now. The reason it's not open right now is because during regular times, they just pack you into this place to pick up your food, to order your food. It can be a difficult experience to actually get your hot dogs. I also think that one of the things about this restaurant, it's kind of similar to Cosmic Rays in respect to families who are there for the first time. This is their first trip to Magic Kingdom. They don't know where to go to get food. They know they can get their kids hot dogs. So they pack these screaming kids into Cosmic Rays, into Casey's Corner. These two restaurants really do end up having a vibe that is difficult, not because there's anything wrong with screaming kids. Listen, a day at Disney can be tough. Sometimes the kid just has to cry it out. Sometimes adults just have to cry it out. But I find that those two restaurants in particular really do attract inexperienced Disney goers who are maybe at that point in the day where they're in a bad mood. After they eat, they're going to be fine. And by the time it's time for fireworks during normal times, they're happy. They don't even remember that they were miserable. But when they were miserable, they were inside either Casey's Corner or Cosmic Rays. Now, I will say the thing that I do like about Casey's Corner is they have a plant-based hot dog that is really, really good. That option is fantastic. I like the food, but sometimes the atmosphere can get a little lost.
I didn't know they had a plant-based option. That is really great. I don't know how many restaurants in Magic Kingdom have good plant-based options, but I could see how this would be definitely up there as a favorite.
I haven't tried Cosmic Rays. Now they have an Impossible Burger, but they used to have a plant-based Sloppy Joe, which tasted like somebody took SpaghettiOs sauce and poured it on chalk.
Oh no, that That's bad.
Pecos Bills used to have a really good plant-based burger, but now they just have like a beans and rice kind of dish for plant-based. There was a really good plant-based option at Columbia Harbor House, but that's not reopened yet. So yeah, it can be tough to get a really good plant-based option. So that was one of the things I did like about Casey's. But in general, dining at Magic Kingdom could be put on the overrated list, except for I don't really know who's rating it all that high. I know you were probably thinking about putting Be Our Guest on here, and I can understand why you would put Be Our Guest on here, but I think that that is coming from somebody who visits the parks as much as we visit them. And if you're only going once, if you only go once every few years, I think it's something you should experience. That's why I didn't put it on. And here are shots fired because I put Jungle Cruise.
Ooh, interesting.
And here's why. Jungle Cruise is awesome the first time you do it. The second time you do it, it's even better because now you're in on the joke. Every time after that, it's okay. The queue for this ride is outside. It's like a shack that's over your head. It's always hot. It's always sticky. You're right by the water, so it gets muggy. This is overrated because of the queue versus enjoyment of the ride. Back with fast passes, Jungle Cruise, great. Sign me up for it. I'll ride it 20 times. But if I have to wait more than 25 minutes, I don't want to do it. And you're never going to get to wait less than 25 minutes for it.
Yep, I can't disagree with you there. That was always one of my fast pass or bust options, where if I got a fast pass for it, great, I would ride it. But if not, I wasn't going to wait for it because I'd already heard all the jokes. I already knew it was going to happen. And that's part of why I'm really excited for the retheme. I'm excited to see new things brought in, new jokes brought in. I think it's going to bring new life to the ride, and it's going to make it fun to ride it again.
I couldn't agree with you more. And there are a lot of people who seem to not want this to get updated. Like they want to hear the same 5 jokes over and over. And Disney can do so much better. I think this is a ride that would be better, might be underrated if fans of Disney didn't stick to tradition as much as they stick to tradition. If they would let these cast members show their personalities, be creative, tell jokes that aren't the same 5 jokes over and over again, I really think this could end up being on the underrated list, and we'll see how that refurbishment goes. What do you have as being underrated, Marissa?
I have the lime Dole Whip, the lime soft serve. I think that that is such a great option if you're looking for a treat in the middle of the day that's going to cool you down a little bit. It's tart, it's refreshing. I love a good Dole Whip. I love it. But sometimes it's a little too sweet. Sometimes it's not really what you want on that really hot day. And the lime Dole Whip hits that spot perfectly. It's often promoted as the Peter Pan float, and I think that can be a little too much. So I would recommend just the cup of the Dole Whip itself. I think that that's the way to go for a perfect hot afternoon treat.
And 100% plant-based as well. It's hard to find a lot of really good treats that are plant-based at Walt Disney World. This is one of them. If you're lactose intolerant, if you have any of those types of situations, the Dole Whip is your best option. And like you said, sometimes getting the pineapple Dole Whip over and over and over again can be really, really repetitive for people. Mix it up every once in a while. That was a really, really great choice. Because I think there is a lot of underrated stuff at Magic Kingdom. My choice was the Liberty Bell.
That's good.
Taking the Liberty Bell, which is the riverboat that goes around the rivers of America. I don't think that I would have this on the list if it didn't just go through a refurb. It was down for a while. Because when it was down, you really got to appreciate how much you enjoy this. It's a ride, so it feels like you're still being productive. Your Magic Kingdom day on a vacation is a go, 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 go day. You want to feel like you're always doing something because there are so many rides, so many attractions. This is a chance to take a break while you still get to feel like you're being productive. It starts about every half hour. They run one of these, so you're never waiting more than a half hour, even during social distancing right now, when they're limiting the number of people on the Liberty Bell. I've never seen them not be able to get everybody on it. It eats a lot of people, beautiful views of Frontierland and Liberty Square. You're going right past Big Thunder Mountain Railroad when people are whipping around. It's really, really fun. Sometimes when you're on Big Thunder, you happen to come around that curve right when the Liberty Bell is there. You get to wave to the people. It's awesome. And this is one of those things that also sort of brings it back to Walt Disney and his love of transportation. I mean, it's the Liberty Bell. It's named after his wife. You have to experience this. It might seem like it's hokey and not exciting, but sometimes Disney is about being hokey and not exciting.
100%. I think that's such a great pick. And I think that it's one that a lot of people might not even realize is something you can do. I think a lot of people are so in that go, go, go mode that they just go right past it and they don't even think about waiting for it. I agree. I think that's definitely something that you should take time out of your day to do. That's a great pick.
So this episode went much, much longer than I had expected. So thank you so much for your patience, Marissa. How can people get a hold of you in the world of Disney fandom if they want to follow you, if they want to talk Disney with you?
If you want to talk Disney with me, even after hearing some of my controversial opinions, you can find me on Twitter at ThinkMickeyBlog.
And none of us said anything about Figment. So there is that. Thank you so much for joining us today, Marissa. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Let us know your under and overrated Walt Disney World experiences in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Of course, if you're looking for a free, no obligation quote on a Walt Disney World, Universal Orlando Resort, or now a Disneyland vacation, since Disneyland is opening again later this month, please shoot me an email, rick@eartotheretravel.com. rick@eartotheretravel.com. Give me a call, 727-507-3123, 727-507-3123. I'm an authorized Disney travel planner, and my services are always 100% free to you, and it really does help the show if you use my services. This has been episode 12 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. We'll be back next Thursday with a brand new episode. Have a great week.